Victor Creed was the first mutant sacrificed on the altar that was Krakoa, but whatever became of Wolverine's greatest foe? Well, let's hop into the pages of Sabertooth issue number 1 and find out together, shall we? So then, as this new series opens up, we're actually treated to a little flashback to the day that Sabertooth was sentenced to enter the pits of Krakoa as punishment. Victor's never exactly been the smartest guy around, but even he realizes the cruel and hilarious irony that people like Magneto and Mystique are passing judgment on him. Lifelong villains and evildoers who try to clean up their own acts and play nice at the art of nation building, and yet Victor gets punished because all he's ever been is himself. Of course, that self that Sabertooth knows so well is a violent, murderous, bloodthirsty maniac, but hey, at least he's honest, right? Now, a lot of people wonder what exactly does happen to a mutant once they get sent to the pits of Krakoa, where they are aware but unable to move. It's implied that the island siphons off some of their energy psychically. But what exactly does that look like, you might be wondering? Well, for Sabertooth, it seems that his mind plays out scenario after scenario wherein he gets revenge on his jailers, starting with the X-Men, who he flash fries with Cyclops' own optic blast before hunting down Nightcrawler and ripping him in half. It's after that bloody little vignette that Sabertooth's perspective changes once again. Now he's a more literal prisoner in a stone jail. He's met by his finger quotes lawyer, who turns out to be Doug Cypher, who's come along to actually make Sabertooth something of a deal. And again, it's implied that this is the real Doug speaking in Sabertooth's brain. You see, Cypher and Krakoa, the island itself, thought that what they did to Victor was kind of cruel and unusual punishment, and as such, they wanted to offer him something a little bit more humane, even for someone like him who arguably doesn't deserve it. Basically, should Victor agree, his body would continue to be trapped and unable to move, but his mind would be free and allowed to roam and imagine scenarios like the ones we've seen. The Quiet Council is very much resolute in their idea that Krakoa will be a land without prisons, but they still need to decide what they're going to do with the few mutants who have been sentenced to the pit. Sabertooth reluctantly agrees, that is, of course, after murdering Doug a little bit, remembering that he was there at his own trial. Apparently, Cypher has actually made this offer to him numerous times before, but only now has it actually worked. Meaning that this choice was never really much of a choice at all, but Sabertooth still agrees all the same, and with his newfound mental freedom, he goes about doing what you think he might do, killing his greatest foes over and over again in more and more violent ways. It's not just the X-Men either, like you might think. No, Sabertooth makes time to kill Iron Fist because, hey, Sabertooth actually debuted in an Iron Fist comic. He even kills off Wildchild and all the other Sabertooth-like characters who have been invented to replace him over the years. Eventually, though, all this killing starts to get boring for Sabertooth. He begins to wonder, does he really know himself as well as he thought he did? Is he really just going to spend the rest of his life as a lackey, a mercenary, a villain who gets defeated over and over again? If he has all the time in the world inside his own mind, shouldn't he try and use it to better himself? Shouldn't he try and use it to become more? Is that ultimately not supposed to be what prison is all about? Rehabilitation? Only Sabertooth goes about rehabilitating himself in a rather interesting way. He calls together a literal meeting of his mind made up of the boy, the captain, and the beast, manifestations of his own personal id, ego, and superego, into a group he calls the Feral Council, because if it worked for the Council of Reeds, well, just everyone gets a council now. What's their big idea, you might be thinking? Do they plan to escape? Do they plan to try and gain more power? No, actually, they plan to start LARPing as Conan the Barbarian, and then eventually playing make-believe as the Starjammers, which, wow, I didn't think anyone wanted to be the Starjammers, but hey, here we are. On the surface, these thought exercises may seem silly, but they actually end up having some rather unforeseen implications on Krakoa as people start seeing spectral versions of Sabertooth all over the island. The plan was always for Krakoa to feed on Sabertooth, but perhaps something has shifted now, maybe a part of him implanted on it, or vice versa. What's for certain, though, is that Sabertooth has certainly managed to change what exactly the pit was. At first a blank and empty world now has become an actual living hell with fire and everything. thing. So yeah, Sabertooth essentially crowns himself devil of this new mutant hell, but what would hell be without any souls to torture? Well, for that, almost as if another bit of cruel irony, the sky quite literally opens up and 5 new damned mutant souls make their way down. Some of them may actually be familiar to you, as they are actual real characters that have existed from across X-Men history, but who haven't done much in a while. There's Melter, Necra, Madison, Jeffries, Oye, and even the Third Eye. A very bored Sabertooth is positively overjoyed to have new people to mess with. He plans to torture them before eventually making his way topside to deliver his revenge on all those who wronged him on the surface. And so that was Sabertooth issue number 1, everybody, and ultimately I thought it had a pretty interesting premise to it, and that is, hey, what if Sabertooth became the devil of mutant kind? It's certainly an upgrade for a character who feels like they play out more or less the same character beats over and over again. This story also does a pretty good job building on the ideas and themes that relate to justice on Krakoa. How does one actually build a just and equal nation? Especially when you have to deal with such irredeemable monsters like Sabertooth. There's also the mystery of these 5 mutants and why exactly they've been sent down. What was their crime? What did they do that the Quiet Council chose to punish them so? And if the people of Krakoa ever found out that the pit isn't just punishment but literally sending people to a kind of hell, would that change their relationship to it, I wonder? Ultimately, I'd feel comfortable giving this one a 7 out of 10. It's certainly a lot higher concept than I would think for a solo Sabertooth book. I just also think that it might not stay a solo Sabertooth book going forward. I think in issue 2, we're going to see that the real story is about the damned mutants, and Sabertooth is going to act as antagonist in the series that bears his own name, which is fine. I just find it interesting that time and time again, writers have come to the same conclusion that Sabertooth is ultimately not that interesting to deep dive in.
Hey there everyone, Kate Joel again, and I just want to thank you so much for watching to the end of the video. It means a lot to me. And hey, if you enjoyed the book I covered in this issue and want some comics of your own, might I recommend Book Depository? It's my #1 place for shopping for comic book trades. You get a great price, and if you use my link down in the description, you'll actually be helping me out at the same time. You get something, I get something, everybody wins, right? So until next time everyone, I've been Joel, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.